Hey everybody, happy Thursday, welcome back. I hope you've been having a great week. I've been getting a lot of questions recently on querying and query letters and everything like that, so I figured now would be a great time to talk about it. So you've been sending out query letters, you've been talking to agents, you've got a great story, you've really honed your hook, you've got just what you think is a phenomenal pitch. Why aren't you getting any hits? The whole goal of your query letter is to paint a picture for the agent of how they're going to be able to sell you and your story. So why they should sign you over all of the other queries, all of the other requests that they're receiving, and how they're going to pitch you, sell you to a publisher. I feel like the biggest thing that authors forget about when prepping their query letters, when working on their pitch, when putting all of this together, is that publishing, for better and for worse, is a business. And a lot of times the site of that business gets a little bit lost in the focus on the creative. So with that in mind, here are the top 5 things that I've found that really make query letters fall flat when they come across an agent's desk. The first thing is too much of a focus on you as an author instead of on your story. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive because you are wanting to sell not only this one book, but yourself as an author. You want to set up this relationship where they're going to be selling you and your products for many years to come. So it makes sense to tell them a little bit about you, but many authors get lost in this. They want to tell the agent that they've been wanting to be a writer since they were 5 and that they came up with this great idea, which it is a great idea, but they came up with this great idea in math class in 8th grade and they've been working on it for 10 years and all these different details. While that paints a picture of you, it doesn't help sell you or your story to that agent or to the publisher in the future. What you want to do is give a little bit of information about yourself, but mostly focus on the story. The times you do want to dive further into your bio about yourself is when it's going to help your author branding, your personal hook. So if you are writing a cookbook and you've been a cook for over 30 years, or if you are writing something in the sci-fi fantasy realm and maybe you got a master's degree in, I don't know, something that has to do with, folklore or legends or anything like that, where you have sort of that backstory that could make that interesting. Again, adding to how they can pitch that to the publisher, because that is always what the agent is looking at when they're reading your query letter, which is not, am I just interested in this, but then do I think I can take this and sell it to somebody? Is it going to be interesting to somebody else? Is there a market out there? So you want to coach all the information you're giving them with that business mindset in mind. The second thing I see happen a lot is that authors give too many genres. So as I've talked about in many videos, a book is not one thing. It may have mystery elements, a romance, it may have a little bit of paranormal or science fiction, it may be set in another time, so historical, anything like that. It can have all of those elements, but one of the biggest things that I see that causes confusion is when an author writes a query letter and they say, hey, I have this really great 90,000 word historical mystery with a little bit of romance and paranormal in it as well. Your book may be all of those things, but you're sending mixed messages by doing that. What you want to do is figure out what is the market you're most targeting. So is it mystery? Is it romance? Is it paranormal? Is it science fiction, fantasy? What is your book? Who's going to be reading it? If you need to, imagine where it's going to be on a shelf in an indie bookstore or in Barnes & Noble. Where are they going to be shelving this book, ideally, if it was published tomorrow? Because that is what you want your main genre to be. You can then hint at the other genres later, either in more details or in the copy or however you've structured your query letter, but what you want to do is give a clear picture to the agent of what overall this book is, so that they, again, can keep in mind who they're going to be pitching, how they're going to be selling this to a publisher. Because if it's a historical mystery romance with some paranormal on it, that could be pitched to a whole variety of imprints. It could be pitched as a romance, it could be pitched as a mystery, it could just be pitched as commercial fiction, it could go to science fiction and fantasy publishers. And while it's not a bad thing necessarily that your book can cross genres like that, you want to make sure you are targeting the best market for you and where you think you'll be able to sell the most books, and so that the agent knows where they'll be able to, where your book will be able to have the most success to set everyone up, you themselves, publisher, moving forward in the best way possible. The third thing is, what comparable titles or shows or media are you putting in your query letter? And are they too old or are they too big? Most everybody includes some sort of comp, whether it's a book, whether it's a TV show, whatever type of form that takes for you, in their query letter. But one of the things authors don't think about a lot of times is how old those comps are. So again, keeping the business mindset in mind, these agents are thinking about, is this still popular? Is this popular now? Is it something that's currently selling? So you want your comps to be relatively recent, so within the last 3 years or so. If it's a comp that may perfectly match your book, but it was something that was popular 10 years ago, you're giving the agent a good idea of what the story is about, but not necessarily showing them that there is a need in the current market. So while they may like the idea, they may not think they can sell it, and those are equally important to an agent. The second aspect to this is it too big of a comp? So I can't tell you how many pitches I've seen come across my desk, yes, even mine as an editor, that say, you know, they're like Game of Thrones, or they're like True Blood. And some of you might be thinking, True Blood, oh my goodness, that was so many years ago. That is most likely too old of a comp, right there. In any case, if you do decide that your book is very much like Game of Thrones, it has that wide scope, it has tons of characters, it's very epic, high fantasy, everything like that, that's wonderful. But as you just saw, I had to list several things that could encompass. As far as if you're referencing Game of Thrones, you're almost better off saying something specifically from Game of Thrones, like a character or a type or a trope or something like that, versus just saying Game of Thrones, because it's so wide, it could cause confusion. What does that mean? One side note on this: if you do want to mention a character, so again, if you're, you know, referencing Game of Thrones and you want to mention Daenerys or one of the other characters, anything like that, you do want to make sure that the book is big enough that they're obviously going to recognize that, but also the character specifically. So, for example, if I said Black Widow, you would obviously know who I'm talking about. If I said Veronica Mars, you may or may not know who I'm talking about, even though that was a very popular show for those of us that liked the mystery thriller romance stories a number of years ago. So you want to make sure you're playing to your audience, but also you're being clear and making sure they're going to understand and instantly recognize your comps. The fourth thing is not following directions. You would not believe how many authors just get pushed aside or put into the trash can because there are very specific guidelines on each and every agent's website that say exactly what they want from you as far as a pitch, whether it's the first 3 chapters, whether it's 50 pages, whether it's a query letter and a synopsis, whether it's just the query letter first, or what have you. If you don't follow those instructions, they're most likely not going to look at your query letter and everything included. Again, these people are very busy and they have so many queries coming across their desk. They're going to prioritize the ones that did their research and followed the instructions and know what they're supposed to be doing. And the reason I bring this up especially is because a lot of authors don't realize that every agency is different. You can't focus on one and then assume that's the way that query letters work. That is not the case. Every agency, while similar most likely, are going to have different requirements. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to each and every one and doing exactly what they ask to make sure you're giving yourself the best chance for success when you come across their desk. Finally, number 5 is personalization. So this sort of goes along with making sure you're following their instructions, but as you start to reach out, you want to personalize your query letters as much as possible. Nothing is a bigger kiss of death than just saying, to whom it may concern, here's my fabulous book, I think it's going to sell really well, here's a little bit about me, thanks so much. That shows that you have not given any thought to who you're applying to. You just want an agent and you want your book to be out there. You are going into a partnership with this agent and hoping that you're going to be able to sell many, many books for years to come. So you want to show that you know who you're talking to, that you think your book is going to fit perfectly on their list because of XYZ, and that they have an interest in this type of book or this genre or something like that, or maybe they put out on social media that they were looking for a book like this, or, you know, even just something as simple as making sure the query letter is addressed by name, if at all possible. Little touches like that are really going to make all the difference in the world as you're trying to stand out from all of the other people that are querying that same agent or agency. So these are the top 5 things that I've really seen that make or break query letters as they're coming across an agent's desk. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you'd love to know more about anything that I've talked about, or you have anything specifically that you haven't already seen a video on, don't hesitate to reach out. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. It really helps the channel. And until next week, keep writing.